If there's one series that it's hard to find too many faults with, it's the Legend of Zelda series. For years now they have been pushing the boundaries of their genre of gaming and using innovative gaming elements to make the game stand above the rest. Two of the strongest games in the series are Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Both games have been hailed as one of the greatest games of all time and have great fan support, but what has also naturally arisen is which of the two games are better. Well, it is my task today to put an end to this argument and once and for all determine which game is the superior. They'll be marked on gameplay, story, music, iconic status, overall gaming experience, and individual gaming elements that I'll explain later. Remember that this is my opinion in the end and is not fact, however much I'd like it to be. Well, with all that said, let's go. This is actually quite a strange one to choose between, because not only were the two games released within 2 years of each other, but they actually use the same engine, hence why they look pretty much exactly the same. Differences are few and far between, to be honest. They both use very similar items, and even some of the enemies are carried over from Ocarina of Time. But there are some huge differences in Majora's Mask. First of all is the 3-day time limit. Now, I know many people who really don't like this and say they feel rushed when playing through it. But personally, I think that's why it's so good. It adds a sense of urgency to the game. You can't just stroll through the game as you please, and it really feels like time isn't on your side as you attempt to save the world. The other real difference in Majora's Mask is the masks. Throughout the game you'll gather 20 different masks that have a variety of uses. Most of them are relatively useless and can only be used for one or two things, but some, like the transformation masks, impact the gameplay heavily and add a huge amount of diversity into areas like dungeons. And besides, the Zora mask is at least 10 times better than the Iron Boots. Storytelling in Legend of Zelda games has always been very similar throughout most games in the franchise, with slight alterations. Ocarina of Time is the classic save the world from evil people and maybe save a princess on the way, all set in the incredible world of Hyrule. Majora's Mask is, well, completely different, and I really mean completely different. Not only is there no Ganon, but there's no Zelda either, except for a little cameo appearance. Instead, you're given the task of saving the world of Termina from a giant moon that will come crashing down in 72 hours, or 3 days. Another thing that is huge in Majora's Mask are the side quests. While the Anjo and Cafe quest may be boring to start with, it picks up amazingly by the end and becomes unbelievably emotional. But personally, I prefer Ocarina of Time's storyline. I know it's a bit of a cliche in the series, but I think it's the best use of the cliche to date. Maybe it's the fact that you see Hyrule in two contrasting views as a child and as an adult, or the fact that Princess Zelda doesn't actually get captured until the latter stages of the game. I don't know. All I know is that Ocarina of Time is the best representation of the adventure-like storyline which made the series great. Sure, Majora's Mask has a very unique and innovative storyline, but it just doesn't feel like something you'd find in a Legend of Zelda game. Koji Kondo is a composing god, not only in Mario games, but in Zelda games too. Each and every game he's worked on is packed to the brim with memorable tunes that work perfectly in the places they are used. As a result, it's really hard to separate these two games on their musical score alone. So, I've decided to choose my two favourite pieces of music from each game, and decide from there which game is better in terms of music. Eventually, I arrived at Zelda's Lullaby and Gerudo Valley from Ocarina of Time, and Song of Healing and Final Hours from Majora's Mask. What I love about the music I've picked is how well they work with the overall feel of the respective games. Zelda's Lullaby is a fantastically serene piece that is used many times throughout the game and never gets old. It's a legend within itself, basically. Gerudo Valley, meanwhile, just sounds so incredibly heroic that it gets your heart pumping for what is my favourite area in the entire game. I love watching Epona just fly over that bridge. Majora's Mask, on the other hand, is a highly emotional game, and the music reflects this very well. Song of Healing does exactly what it sets out to do. A beautifully calm piece that cleanses the soul and puts troubles at ease. For a while, it was my favourite Legend of Zelda song. That was before I discovered Final Hours. For me, there has never been a song that has suited a situation better in the entire series. It sounds both depressing and desolate, and almost inspiring at the same time. Almost like you have to save the world. The entire world is counting on you. Finding the swordsman cowering in the corner of his shop while this plays is moving beyond belief. This song is what wins the category for Majora's Mask. This is a bit of a no-brainer if I'm honest. Ocarina of Time introduced so many elements that other games have gone on to copy. The introduction of the targeting system and focusing on one enemy at a time has been used in so many adventure games after. Majora's Mask also introduced a lot of new ideas to the series, but very few were continued through to other games in the franchise. Ocarina of Time is hailed as the breakthrough of adventure games, and it isn't hard to see why. A staple part of any Legend of Zelda game are the bosses and the dungeons. If you have bad dungeons and bad bosses, then you're effectively screwed. And this is actually a very strange category to decide on, as they both have very good points and bad points in both departments. First, dungeons. Ocarina of Time has some of the best dungeons in any Legend of Zelda game. The music complements the areas very well, giving it an atmospheric feel when necessary. Dungeons like the Forest Temple and the Spirit Temple are so ingenious and so well thought out that it's a joy to go through them. Majora's Mask though, not really. There are only 4 dungeons in the entire game, 5 if you include the moon, and they never really got it right in my opinion. Sure, you battled through each dungeon as a different version of Link each time, but they were never very fun to go through. Of course, there are exceptions to this, like Ocarina of Time's Water Temple that is notorious for being annoying and frankly kind of boring. And Majora's Mask's Stone Tower Temple, that is my personal favourite in the series due to its ambiguous backstory and clever puzzles. And it's the same with bosses, but vice versa. Ocarina of Time has a few bosses that I love, like Twin Rover and Volvagia, but then there are Morpha, Bongo Bongo and Baronade that I utterly despise. Majora's Mask, on the other hand, has the enjoyably challenging Odowa, the flexible Got, and the frankly awesome Twin Mold, but it also has the infuriating, the annoying, and the ridiculously cheap Gyog, I don't know. So yeah, quite a difficult category to choose a winner for, but I've chosen Ocarina of Time. While they both have exceptions in either area, I just prefer the overall feel of the Ocarina of Time dungeons. It's a bit hard to explain, but that's just how it is. And it all comes down to this, the overall gaming experience, what you feel when you're playing the game. Ocarina of Time, like I've mentioned, is a fantastically heroic game. Playing through it, you really feel like you've been on an adventure. You get a great deal of satisfaction. Majora's Mask, being the more emotional game, naturally has a more powerful impact on the player. The importance of the lesser characters in the game is incredible really, and like I said, the Anju and Cafe quest is unbelievable. In Majora's Mask, you really feel like a part of what you're doing, a bit like Ocarina of Time. But in Majora's Mask, it's how each and every character deals with the impending disaster of the moon destroying everything. Even though you aren't obliged through right to help, like in Ocarina of Time, you still feel like you have to help, to save all those lives and to banish the evil that's haunting the world of Termina. Don't get me wrong, Ocarina of Time is a fantastic game to play through, but Majora's Mask has a huge and lasting emotional impact on the player. conclusion, it's really hard to split these games as they are both the pinnacle of what they set out to do. Ocarina of Time is the definitive adventure game, being the true epic tale. Majora's Mask is a different take on the classic adventure story, and while it keeps many elements in the series, it has enough new ideas to make it a fresh and exciting entry into the franchise. In the end, I can only say this. Ocarina of Time is like a classic piece of literature, a tale that is passed down through history and hailed as the incredible fable that it is. Majora's Mask is more like a blockbuster film. It isn't as cliché as Ocarina of Time, but it is different enough to attract a large following. It is hugely emotional, and as a result, memorable, something that no one can really take away. I can see why Ocarina of Time is considered not only the best Legend of Zelda game, but the greatest game of all time, but for me, Majora's Mask is the better game. Now remember that this is only my opinion, and while Majora's Mask may win this matchup, the true winner is all down to your own personal opinion. Thanks for watching, and be sure to watch the next matchup, Metal Gear Solid 3 versus Metal Gear Solid 4. Take care, and I'll see you next time.